You know that quiet guilt when you realize you spent the whole evening watching someone else play the game you own? Like you did your own hobby wrong. Everyone assumes that's laziness or missing out on the real thing. But watch what your brain was actually reaching for because it's stranger and far more human than that. This isn't about being lazy. This isn't about not having the time to play. And it's definitely not about living through someone else because your own life feels empty. It's about something specific your mind is doing, something that has real names in psychology, and once you see it, you'll never call it a waste of time again. So let's look at what's really happening when you watch instead of play. The friendship your brain quietly builds with a stranger, the skill it absorbs while your hands never move, the company it finds in an empty room, and somewhere in the middle, one honest question about the moment watching stops helping. Start with the person on the screen. You've never met them. They don't know your name. And yet, if they went quiet for a week, you'd genuinely wonder if they were okay. Back in 1956, two researchers named Donald Horton and Richard Wohl gave this a name. They called it the parasocial relationship, a one-sided bond that your brain treats as completely real. Here's what most people miss. Your nervous system never evolved to tell the difference between a friend across the table and a familiar voice in your headset for 3 hours every night. The warmth, the inside jokes, the way their laugh makes the room feel less empty. That is not a trick you're falling for. To the oldest parts of your brain, that is company. And in a world where a lot of adults go days without a single easy, low-pressure conversation, a voice that shows up every evening and asks nothing of you isn't something to be ashamed of. It's a kind of quiet relationship the modern world runs on more than it likes to admit. And notice, this is not only for the lonely. Some of the busiest, most connected people you know still keep one familiar voice playing in the background, because there is a specific comfort in a bond that never once asks for anything back. Now think about why it feels so good to watch someone who is genuinely great. You feel the clutch play in your own chest. When they finally beat the boss, some part of you exhales like you're the one who did it. There is a real mechanism behind that. Albert Bandura spent his career showing that people learn and even feel accomplishment by watching others. He called it observational learning and vicarious experience. When you watch a master play, your brain runs a quiet simulation, rehearsing the moves, tasting the win, without the 40 deaths it took them to earn it. That's why watching can scratch the exact same itch that playing does, only without the frustration. Think of it like learning to cook by watching someone calm and confident in the kitchen. You absorb far more than you'd expect, and you skip the burned first attempts. But that same comfort casts a shadow, and we will get to it. There's a third thing that watching hands you, and it might be the most underrated of all: a break from being in charge. Think about your whole day. Every hour you make hundreds of tiny decisions, at work, at home, on your phone, until the part of your brain that chooses is simply worn thin. Psychologists have a name for that. They call it decision fatigue, and Roy Baumeister spent years mapping how our willpower and our ability to choose actually run down like a battery over a long day. So by the time you finally sit down at night, playing a game is one more thing asking you to decide. Where to go, what to build, how to react. Right now, again and again. But watching asks nothing of you. You get all the color and the tension and the world of the game, and not a single choice lands on your shoulders. For a mind that has been deciding since the alarm went off that morning, that is not laziness. That is the closest thing to rest it can find while still feeling awake and alive. And that exact relief is where our story picks up. There's a woman named Renee, 34 years old, from Portland. She's a nurse who works night shifts. She comes home around 7 in the morning, wired and hollow at the same time, the specific kind of tired where your body is done but your mind refuses to land. She used to play. Now, most mornings she pulls the blinds, climbs into bed, and puts on the same streamer she's followed for 2 years and lets it play while she falls asleep. She told me something that stuck with me. She said, "I don't have the energy to be the one who decides anything anymore. I just want to be in the room while someone else does." That instinct has a name. Psychologists talk about the third place, a term from Ray Oldenburg. Not home, not work, just a comfortable somewhere else where you're allowed to simply exist. For a lot of people, a stream quietly became that place. And the thing Renee is describing, the wish for company without any demand attached, is closer to something ancient than anything modern. It is the plain human need to not be alone in a room, answered by a screen. Quick question. When you put on a stream, are you choosing it or are you reaching for it the way you reach for a light switch in a dark house? Hold on to your honest answer, because it matters for what comes next. Because let's be honest about the other side of this. There are two very different reasons to watch instead of play, and from the outside they look identical. The first is that watching genuinely gives you something. Rest, company, the pleasure of someone else's skill. The second is quieter and harder to admit. Sometimes we watch because playing means trying. And trying means the chance of being bad at it, and some part of us would rather not risk that today. Watching is safe. Nobody loses when you're only observing. There's a name that sits close to this in psychology, a mild version of experiential avoidance, gently steering around the small vulnerability of effort. And the way to tell the two apart is simple and honest. Does the watching leave you itching to pick up the controller, or does it slowly replace the wanting to? One version feeds the fire. The other quietly lets it go out. Here's a small test you can run tonight. When the stream finally ends, do you feel a little fuller, the way you do after time with a good friend, or a little emptier, like you quietly skipped something you meant to do? Your body tends to know that answer long before your mind admits it. If it's the second one, the watching isn't the problem, but it might be standing in for something you would actually love to be doing. Now, zoom out. A real friendship with a stranger, a win you feel in your body without lifting a finger, a third place to exist in, company inside an empty room, and sometimes a soft place to hide from the risk of trying. Look at all of that and notice what it is not. It is not laziness. It is not a wasted evening. It's a mind doing something deeply, recognizably human, reaching for connection, for mastery, for rest in the easiest form it can find. And the strange grace of it is that the same person who calls themselves lazy for watching is usually just tired or a little lonely, or quietly protecting a dream they haven't actually given up on. So the next time you close the game you meant to play and open the stream instead, maybe don't reach for the guilt first. Ask the gentler question. What am I actually here for tonight? Here for? Company or a win, or just to not be alone for a while? So here's what I really want to know. Who is the streamer you've watched so long they feel like an actual friend, and what does that hour give you that playing doesn't? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if this made you feel seen instead of lazy, subscribe. There's a new one like this every week.